This is the Mike LiPetri Show. Look who we have today. Charles Weinraub, a.k.a. Handsome Homebuyer. Look how handsome he is. What's that number to reach you? What's that number?
516-777. Sold.
This guy wants to buy it. He is featured in his hilarious commercials on News 12 Long Island, as well as featured in Long Island Business News, Newsday, and other prominent real estate industry publications. Charles, for all of you who don't know, is one of the most sought-after purchasers of single-family homes, land, and commercial property on Long Island and in the metro New York City area. I didn't know you also expanded out past Long Island, which is pretty sick.
Yes, sir.
I like that. And you have a master's degree, which is so cool, in real estate development, by the way, at NYU.
Yep.
And you're currently the CEO of Mandalay Holdings and a number of complementary businesses such as Captain Permit and Weinraub Management.
Damn.
What don't you do?
Dude, you're fucking good at this.
Listen, man, I'm here because I'm following in your footsteps because you're just that good.
You are.
That's why you're so handsome.
And you have a good voice, too.
Listen, I appreciate that voice, but you know what? I'm trying to focus on you right
All right,
now.
let's
It's not
focus.
about me. Yes, it's my show.
Back to me.
Back to you.
Back to me.
You are the main attraction for the men and women who are watching. And that's what it's all about. So I'm here. I'm super excited to have you on. You have been somebody that has just been hustling. You have the sickest social media. I love that dedication. We're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about Gary Vee because I want to hear how you have been building, and you're going to get his ass on your show.
100%.
And I want to make sure that people know all that diligence, persistence, and focus that you have on vision, on getting a dominant guy in the business world to be there with you. And I know it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Failure's not an option.
Failure is never an option. That's who you are, though.
That's
what it's all become about with throughout your legacy to who you are today. You're a thriving business owner. You have all these different ideas. And I want to hear with how did you have this master's degree in real estate development at NYU. How does that go from there to then becoming the handsome home buyer? How do you form that?
So it's kind of like the other way around, right? So I got into flipping houses because I decided I wanted to flip houses. I read Rich. Actually, I should digress. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was like, I'm going to be a professional investor.
No shit, Rich Dad. People have been raving about that book. I have not read it yet.
Simplest thing in the world. When you read it, you're just like, oh, why didn't I just realize this before? Like, I think everybody should read it like elementary school. It would be a total game changer for everybody.
Really?
So at 27, 28, someone gives me this book. I'm like, oh, that just simplified life. I want to be a professional investor. But what does that mean? You're going to do stocks. You're going to be real estate. I researched, went into it, and I said, you know what? I'm not really a stock market guy. To me, it's gambling. Some people make a lot of money. I don't personally like it. It's not for me. Real estate it is. So I took this one-day class at NYU after the crash on foreclosures. Because everybody who gets into real estate thinks that banks are just giving houses away, and that's the way you get all the cheap properties, right?
Right.
Not at all. Banks are actually very overpriced, and that's not how you get the cheap properties. But when I took that class, they told me to go out and join the local RIA. So I went. RIA stands for Real Estate Investment Association. It's like a local meetup group.
Okay.
I met my mentor. I trained with him for almost 4 years before I ever did my first deal. And I've done 400 houses since.
Jesus.
In the middle of that, I decided to go back to NYU to get my master's because when I went there for the one-day course, I said to myself, I want to own a private equity fund. I'm going to have a big office. I feel like I need to come back here in order to get where I'm going. So in my third year, I flipped 67 houses. I went back to NYU. It took me 2 years and a semester going part-time to get my master's in real estate development, and it was a game changer for me.
Wow. How old were you at that point?
I was 38. I went back when I was 38.
Yeah, see? And I think that's also so inspirational for so many people. They think that everything has to occur in your 20s, when the reality is that that's the very essence of life, is that growth and that recognition that for you to take next steps and next stages and the evolution of your life and your profession, it's okay to just take those time to pause and where for you, you're looking at it saying, for me to get to where I want to be, I want to get this, I want to pursue this and to grow. And I think that's awesome. So then now from there, how do you just keep cultivating these different businesses, Captain Permit, Weinraub Management, like Mandalay, like how do those all intersect with each other?
So Mandalay is basically the mothership, right? It owns all the other businesses. So, and everything flows up to that. So necessity is really the mother of all invention. So I opened up this fix and flip company, and we started flipping all these houses. And then I started having problems with the town. Couldn't get my own permits, right? So I'm like, you know what? F it. I see there's a big need here. Let me open up this business. So I opened up Captain Permit. did very well. I ended up selling it off to my brother-in-law and my COO, who was running it fairly recently. So now it's theirs, and I have exited that business. I started buying a lot of rental properties. I'm like, who's going to manage my rentals better than me? Open Weinraub Management. I have over 100 rental properties that we manage, and now we're starting to buy up books of other people's property management companies and starting to manage other people's businesses. So once you know how to like structure business and standard operating procedure, you're putting the right COO in place, you can just build business after business after business. It's the same model over and over and over again. And you're just monitoring from a high level, and you're being the innovator, the person that's coming up with the different concepts and launching different businesses.
With something so interesting as the fix and flip, right? Those are things that you hear plenty of the commercials saying, join my course and I'll teach you how to become a multimillionaire and all. Was that something that you pursued to learn this? How did you learn it?
So I joined East Coast RIA, and I met my mentor there, his name is Carl Chavone. He's like a second father to me. And he does have a course.
Shout out to Carl.
Shout out to Carl. Changed my life forever. And he does have a course where you pay him, but it's like these courses that you see are big money. Like Fortune Builders and some of these other courses, it's like $30, $40, $50, $60, $100,000.
Wow.
Big money. So Carl has a very modest, reasonably priced course that he offers. And I stayed with him for 3 years. And now I'm where I am.
How old were you at that point?
I was probably about 30 years old when I started working with him. And then I didn't do my first deal until I was like about 34 years old. So I've only been in the business for like 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you see how through that hustle that you've been able just to take off in that time frame, which is amazing. From 18 years old out of high school to 30. So where did you graduate high school?
Went to Wantagh High School.
Which high school?
Wantagh.
Oh, Wantagh High School.
Yes. So I went to Wantagh High School.
And then from there, 18 years old to 30 years old, what are you doing? What's that timeline to transform you into the handsome home buyer?
You know what it is, man? I grew up in Wantagh, which is a very sheltered place. Like I had a very cushy life. I had a lot of energy, but I didn't have like a ton of hustle. And at some point in time, it just kind of turned on. Like I didn't want to go to college. I didn't want to grow up. Truth is, I don't want to grow up now.
Peter Pan, baby.
My mother calls me Peter Pan to this day.
Peter.
So I went to Farmingdale for a year. I went to Nassau for 2 years. I went to Hofstra for 2 years. Finally, on the 5-year plan, graduated. My father owned a Mako in Brooklyn, so he said, "Hey, listen, there's a Mako set up in Hempstead for literally $60,000. I'll loan you the money. It's already set up. It got closed down. You can open this business and do it." So I operated the Mako for 10 years, and I learned a lot, but I did not like it. It wasn't for me.
It wasn't. So how do you? So many people would say, yeah, but it's something that you're doing well in. You know what you're doing. Yeah, so what? You don't really like it. Work is work, right? And it's about just making a living and trying to earn and provide for yourself and your significant other and your family thereafter. What do you have to say to that?
My saying is, I'm more afraid of being average than I am being broke. So, yes, for all intents and purposes, I could have stayed there. I could have made a living. I could have made a couple $100,000 a year. I own the building still, and yeah, life could have been good. But I wasn't happy doing it.
It's all about following that passion?
All about following the passion. Plus, the way I'm set up is I obsess about something until I master it, and when I master it, I lose interest in it, and now I have to master something else.
Got it. You should pick up chess.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't know if I have I don't
It's
think I
going
have
to take forever to master it, so there you go. That might be a good side hobby.
The only problem is I have ADHD so bad that I can't sit there in one spot. I'll lose my mind. But
so now you're in this, you have this business, and you're like, it's not for you.
Yep.
So where do you go?
I took that course, and I'm like, that's it. So
that's what it was, is that course.
So I read the book. The book led me to that course at NYU, which led me to East Coast RIA, where I had my 3 to 4 year apprenticeship under Carl. And then I did the first flip. I did 2 flips while I still owned the Mako. Put the Mako up for sale, and I was like, that's it. This is the rest of my life. I'm out of here.
Did you use the money from the sale to help you start up your business yourself or anything like that?
No, so not really. I mean, when you sell a business like that, it's not really worth a ton of money. So
okay.
I sold it, paid off whatever debt we had, and then I started raising private money. So, I didn't have the money to do it. I started raising private money from people.
How did you raise private money from people?
It started on Facebook. So, back then, 10 years ago, before I was doing this, I was just kind of documenting my journey on Facebook of, that I'm going to flip houses. So, I had kids reach out to me from high school who I, played PAL basketball, baseball with. You're like, hey, listen, we have jobs now, we have some money. If you're gonna do something, let us know. We'll invest in it. So to do my first deal, I raised the money from kids I went to high school with.
No shit.
And now I have like half of Wanto invested in these deals.
Really?
Yeah. IRAs, people are taking freaking lines of credit when the rates are really low.
Yeah.
One of my investors, this is kind of a cool thing. So, I played baseball with him. The rates were like 0 at the time. His wife was having a baby. He took a line of credit out on the house for $500,000. He lent it to me. And he made $60,000 a year investing with me, and his wife got to stay home with their kid and raise their child.
That's wonderful, man.
Awesome.
What a great story.
Awesome.
That is fantastic. Did that give you any sort of sense of fulfillment?
Yeah, it's very cool. It's very cool. Like, the coolest part of what I do is we give a lot of people opportunity. Like, we employ indirectly like hundreds of people.
That's tremendous.
Between like, the 45 people that I have directly working for me, all the subcontractors, the people that feed them.
Did you have was this strictly your mentor who was just giving that guidance? Was there others that ended up coming to impact? Were you reaching out to some to say, hey, how do I do this? Or what do I do with that? What was your process with that? Yeah. So many people, because I look at it in terms of fix and flip homes specifically, you have to know how to do the construction. Did you know how to do the construction yourself? Because so many people are saying that the profit margin, it's not worth it if you can't do the construction yourself. Is that accurate?
I can't even hammer a nail.
So how did you end up making that work, business model?
So that was actually the hardest part. So the hardest part of me getting my first deal. So once I was ready to buy my first deal, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to buy my first deal. It took me a year to get the first deal. And the biggest thing that was holding me up was I didn't understand how much it cost to fix houses. So I had another mentor who I had met. And I think everybody has lots of mentors, and you take bits and pieces from people, right? So I had this mentor, his name was Les Jansen. Great guy. He's no longer with us, unfortunately. And he was a home inspector, and I called him in to do a home inspection on a house that I was gonna buy, and I paid him to do it. And I sat down with him, and he's like, all right, he goes, this house is gonna sell right about the time your kids go to college. He goes, it's a terrible house, and he laid it all out for me. And I'm like, yo, I don't know how much it costs to fix houses. He goes, oh, that's it? That's your problem? I'm like, yeah, that's my problem. He's like, it's easy. If you gut renovate the inside of the house, it costs $45,000. If you have to do the outside of the house, it's $15,000. I'm like, so it's $60,000 altogether? He's like, yeah, that's it. Next week, I bought my first house. Now, those numbers weren't right, and it ended up working out for me. But if you don't get into doing the actual construction on the houses, you don't really know how much stuff costs.
So is that where that's typical like on-the-job learning, where now you bought the house, you saw it's a shit show, and you're looking at it saying, okay, I have to get new windows. I have to get a new kitchen. I have to get a new bathroom. And you're just learning slowly, step by step, in a sense?
Well, when you're training with somebody like Carl, you're building your professional team while you're learning. So, like, I had contractors, I had attorneys, I had, all these different people. So I already had a contractor ready to go who was giving me some guidance. But, not enough guidance to pull the trigger. The key with stuff like this is to not over-educate. There's a balance. You have to learn as much as you possibly can so that you get into a deal and don't get hurt. But you're never going to know everything until you start getting into the actual deals. So that deal got me in. That concept of $60,000 got me into a deal safely where I made money. And after that, I was like, all right, that's it. This is my future. That's it. I'm done.
And you're just hooked.
Put the Mako up for sale, sold the Mako, kept the building.
That's what I mean.
That's it, done.
And then just kept building from there with house after house after house.
Yep.
How many homes were you in the beginning of your career flipping and then selling?
So the first year I did 11.
Wow.
The second year I did, what was it? Oh, yeah, 11. Sort of got married and sort of got divorced. I did 40 the second year, 67 the year after that, and it just kept going.
Do we go into that hiatus or just let that go?
No, we can go with anything you want.
Sometimes why I ask that is because sometimes people are always saying, right? I mean, I'm getting married. I'm having children. I buy my first home. How do you manage all that within your time, within work, with priorities? What is your advice to that question?
I'm a really terrible person to ask that to because I don't live a normal life in that sense. Like, I'm 43 years old. I buy 100 houses a year. I live in a one-bedroom apartment. I'm not married. I don't have any kids.
So what happened with that in the sense of your relationship that was during ongoing as you were building these 11 homes
Yep.
every year? It's obviously taking up a lot of time. what was your thoughts on that with managing with that relationship at the time?
So I guess, I mean, she was doing it with me together. The explosion of that had nothing to do with like the business and the career. But I think, and I worry about this all the time, or I think about it all the time, if you are a very driven, successful person, it's not super easy to date you. So you have to get the right person. And I mean, I think I have some of the answers, but probably not. Either you have to have somebody who kind of works in the business with you, who gets it, so you guys are together and get the same passion and you're building it together, or you have to have somebody who really, really understands you. Like, for example, if I was dating someone that wasn't in real estate, she would probably have had a father who worked like crazy, who wasn't around all the time, so she's used to that. Like, if her father was a teacher and he was around half the year all the time, weekends, the whole nine, like, she's going to hate me.
Got it.
So I guess it's just a matter of, like...
having that patience, understanding.
Yeah, or just, as we were discussing off air before, your partner, your perfect partner of somebody that really understands you.
So how did you cultivate the name Handsome Homebuyer during that time?
So my ex...
Besides the obvious, of course.
So my ex sort of wife, I have a buddy who calls himself, he's the self-proclaimed most handsome man in the world. He has shirts that say most handsome man in the world. He has a kid now, and the kid has a shirt that says world's most handsome baby. So he calls everybody handsome. So when I was trying to brand myself, and I was like, what the hell am I going to call myself? I'm like, I'm going to be the handsome home buyer. And my wife's like, what kind of vain a-hole is going to call themselves the handsome home buyer? I'm like, listen. I'm not that good looking. I'm like a soft 6. So, like, I can get away with it. Because if I was really good looking, everyone would be like, this guy's a dick.
Yeah.
But since I'm not, they're like, that's funny. So today, nobody knows my real name. Everyone just calls me handsome. Yeah, you know Charles Weinraub? Who the hell is that? You know, handsome?
Yeah, that is so funny because it is so true. It's handsome home buyer. It's handsome home buyer. It's like Charles. It's so funny. And it's so accurate because that's what branding is, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's about building that. So how early in your career did you build that name?
That was pretty soon. That was like
first year 1.
Yeah, year 1.
Yeah, year 1. You're just like, I know I'm gonna have something. This is gonna be built.
I'm the handsome home buyer.
I'm the handsome home
I'm
buyer.
all about the ride, man. I'm like, I'm gonna have fun with all of this stuff. I'm gonna have a good time. I'm gonna enjoy myself, and whatever happens.
Did you ever get nervous though when you invested with other people's money? Did you ever get nervous about that? If you failed, if it didn't come through, for example, you bought the home and it's not $60K in expenses, and rebuilding it's going to be actually $120K, and you're like, oh shit.
It's pretty rare to blow it that bad. Like when you've had that kind of training. I mean, listen, crazy shit happens all the time.
And that's the 3-year training that covered all that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, okay.
So you get yourself, knock on wood, I'm never in a position where like it detonates that bad. Right.
You're always in it where maybe if you're off by pennies as opposed to dollars.
Yeah, I mean, but so you have to think about it. And I'm going to make up a number, make up a scenario. If you're going to sell a house for $400,000 and you're trying to make $50,000, you have $50,000 of your own money in it, and then you have the investor's money at $300. There's like, if you're going to be off, you're not going to be off $100,000. You're not going to be off 25% of what you think is going to go on.
Right.
So it's kind of rare for something like that to happen.
So over these past several years now, the market has changed radically. How does that affect your business?
Now it's really hard, man. Right now it's really hard because there's a weird kind of chain of events. The last 6 months has been tough. This is going to be a tough year, and you have to change, and the business has changed dramatically. Like, I'll give you an example. What used to cost me $115,000 to renovate 3 years ago costs $165,000 now.
Wow.
And the price of the homes has not gone up, and there's no inventory, and there's people chasing tons of houses because there's no inventory. And even though a ton of people are leaving Long Island, a ton of people are coming in from the boroughs, so it's very, very, very difficult. You can't do construction on houses. And then if you couple that with having to wait a year for a building permit, it's just an absolute disaster. It's very hard.
You started off with fixing and flipping.
Yep.
Then you gradually went into apartment rentals or rentals.
So
first, how does that work in that process?
First, I started flipping houses, and then met my mentor Carl. My mentor Carl has taught me a ton of stuff, and it doesn't all come to the forefront of my brain at once. It comes in like bits and pieces.
You have a small frontal lobe. Is that why?
Apparently, yeah. I have a little head with a small frontal lobe. So Carl was always like, "Listen, flipping houses is great. It's a job. It could be a very high-paying job, but it doesn't build generational wealth. Rentals build generational wealth." So I would say, like, 3 years into flipping houses, I'm like, all right, you know what? Maybe we should start buying some rentals. So whatever I could get that's a rental, I would buy rentals, and I started stacking up rentals. And over the last 4 years, I've stacked up over 100 rental properties.
Did you ever use that as a way to diversify in order for these moments, per se, where now when the market's slow and you can't flip it and sell it?
Yeah.
I mean, you still have a business where you still have to pay employees, you still pay contractors, you still pay those that are on the books for you, right? So how did you kind of navigate that professionally as a business owner?
Yeah, so when I started buying the rentals, I'm like, listen, I got to buy these rentals because if one day, let's say, I can't flip houses, how am I going to sustain my lifestyle? But now it's to the point where, like, I can retire. I don't have to work if I don't want to work.
Right.
Depending on what kind of life I want to live, like, I don't have to work anymore.
Yeah. And was that something that you always set your sights on as a goal?
My original plan when I was younger was marriage, retirement, and kids at 40 to a hot 27-year-old. So I'm 43. I'm dating a 30-year-old. I could have retired at 40, but don't want to because I would probably lose my mind. So I'm doing okay.
So we're right there.
Yeah, we're right there.
We're on track with everything. That's good. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear that pathway forward. So for those that are trying to mimic your lifestyle, it's a pretty good recipe to follow.
Yeah, I mean, listen, everybody has their own life to lead, right? You have to do what makes you happy. For me, I like the action.
Yeah, I think that's what it also is a part of it, is that addiction to the action, to the game itself. And for you, that's unique in that respect of how you really have set your sights on it and have done flawlessly executed properly. And I think that's marvelous to see. Now, something for me is many people that are looking to get in the game now, right? Those 20-year-olds, young 30s. They're looking to get in the game now, but the market has changed so rapidly. What is your advice to that? Where do we go from here for the market in terms of fixing and flipping, or apartment rentals, or new construction on Long Island in general? What are your thoughts on that?
It's there's always opportunity. There's always opportunity, right? Like so you just have to constantly be reinventing yourself. So what are we doing now? We're doing different things. So I'm doing more dormers than new construction. I'm buying houses at a discount and not doing as extensive repair to them and just putting them back on the market and selling them that way because there's such a demand and there's no supply.
Right.
So just as long as you're buying at the right number, you're going to be fine.
How do you know the right number?
That's where the training comes in. So number one, and I barely got out of high school, you have to get the education. A lot of people think they can watch 3 TikTok videos and one of those home flipping shows and they're ready to go, right? No, it takes years. It takes at least a year of extensive training before you're ready to even, attempt to buy a house.
See, I think it's all that education.
Yep.
And so would you recommend that they follow these courses? Buy like what are those tools that they should pursue?
So I think the East Coast RIA or RIAs, they have them all over the country.
Okay.
So they're very inexpensive. It's like you go to a meeting, it's like $25. So I would join that. There's a lot of mentors there. There's a lot of people that are in the business. You can either get a paid mentor there, or you can just meet people and start learning there. That's where I would really, really start. I mean, there's all kinds of places. There are a bunch of YouTube videos that are very helpful. You can go to local colleges. Like NYU is an amazing program. I learned a ton that completely changed my life, especially on the rental side. It really taught me about commercial development and cap rates and rentals, and really just that exploded my business. I
think that's excellent. And because so many people, they want to get into this, but then you hear the whole argument about interest rates. How much does interest rates affect you?
It does until it doesn't. Like, I'll give you an example. Yeah, last year when interest rates went from 3 to 7%, the market went wild. People were freaking out. It doesn't matter what the interest rate is. It's the instability of markets that bothers people. So right now, interest rates are 6%. You know what? Everybody's like, interest rates are 6%. 6% isn't a lot. It's a lot compared to 3%, but 3% is insane and should have never happened and might never happen again. When my parents, you hear this all the time, my parents bought a house in 1980.
Yeah, that's 15%.
It was like 18% or something crazy like that. So the market adjusts to whatever the rates are, and it stabilizes, and then the prices are the prices. It's the instability that's not good for the market because everybody freezes. They don't know what to do.
Do you think that Handsome Homebuyer would also pursue one of those courses, teaching courses, lessons, anything of the sort, speaking seminars, where people can just go through you directly and have you hired as a mentor or classes? Is that something that's in your future? Where is the future of Handsome Homebuyer?
So, I mean, this is like a means to an end for me. I want to have a private equity fund and invest billions of dollars on a mass scale. That's really what I want to do. A lot of people have suggested I do the education. There's a lot of money in education. It's not so much my thing. Not that I don't like educating people, but
Is that your passion?
yeah, it's not my passion. It's not. I mean, listen, I like getting up on stage and talking, and that's cool. But just to go out there and educate, that's not my thing. I want to be like in the street, getting down and dirty. But I don't want to be doing what I'm doing for that much longer. It's a burnout job.
Yeah. How many hours a week are you dedicating, you think?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Like, I've been working 14, 16-hour days. You know.
Weekends too?
Yep.
All the time.
All the time. But I think I would do that regardless. But the thing with flipping houses on a scale like this is you're always so transactional that you're always chasing the deal. So I've been automating the business and bringing more people in so that it's so that it can be more passive. And then once I have that set up, hopefully by the end of this year, I'm going to start branching out into other businesses.
And that's where you want to pursue this private equity venture.
Yeah, I have a real estate brokerage concept in my head that's like itching at me that I'm going to have to do. And then after that, I'm going to launch into private equity. Yeah.
So, do you want to talk about this brokerage, this real estate brokerage idea, or?
Yeah, we can touch on it real quick.
Because I really want, I want to hear this. What's kind of the game plan? Because the future of Handsome, I think so many viewers and listeners, they want to be a part of you because your ventures have been so successful. Mm-hmm. Your future is only going to be even better.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. So, I know a lot about a lot of things within the industry. So I have a lot of real-world experience, and I have a lot of, just formal education in the real estate space. Plus, I have a lot of traditional sales training. Like, the traditional art of sales it's a lost art. Mm-hmm. I was trained in Mako by a gentleman who sold Electrolux vacuum cleaners door to door in the 70s, and was trained by like Zig Ziglar and Tommy Hopkins and all those old school guys.
Yeah.
So I know how to do that, and the permit background and all that stuff. And necessity being the mother of all inventions, like all my other businesses, is I feel like real estate brokers are doing a tremendous disservice to real estate agents. And I have kind of come up with a model over the last 6 months in my head where I think I can turn it into a national brokerage like an EXP or a Coldwell Banker or something like that and really impact realtors and really enable them to make a real living.
So should realtors be contacting you?
We're not there yet. I got to standardize the Handsome Homebuyer thing, but next year that's something that
that's the next
looking
step
to do. But yeah, just like not to get super into it, but my thing is this. I think real estate agents, loan officers, a lot of people that are employees but not really employees, they have a work ethic, they want to work, but they don't know what to do. So when you're a realtor, you get a real estate license, and they're like, all right, go out there. Yeah, be a realtor, they say. You'll make your own hours. You'll make big commission. But, like, what the hell are you doing every day? They don't teach you how to do that. They don't teach you what to do. So if somebody was able to develop a model where real estate agents could get plugged into it that basically acted as like a franchise model and a roadmap for what they do on a daily, hourly basis, I think you'd have agents making multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that would otherwise be making $50,000 a year.
And that somebody is the Handsome Homebuyer in 2024.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm talking about.
Bang!
This private equity venture.
Yep.
This sounds like you're going bigger.
Bigger
Than we got the real estate brokerage, which sounds sick, and now we're going to this private equity.
Yep.
Why?
Because like you got to keep up in the bar.
But why? Why private equity?
For the same reason that like you're going to be president one day, because you're going to be like, you know what, Congress was cool, but like I need to be on that next level. I got to be the president.
Private equity for you, is that something that how does that set the bar? How does that motivate you?
So for me, it's like I feel like that's the professional ranks of investment, right? That's as high as you can go. When you are investing at that level with those players with that dollar amount, you've reached the pinnacle of the investing game.
What do you want to buy with that money that you get to invest?
Everything.
We talking commercial towers? We're talking sports teams? What are we talking? Are we talking Gary V level? We're going to the Jets? We're going to try to buy the Jets with him?
No, not so. Sports were never my thing. But the cool thing about private equity that I really like is I'm pretty good at like identifying opportunity or businesses or people that I feel are going to be successful. So the cool thing about private equity is you raise money for a specific sector that you have interest in. You make sure that you have people running those divisions that are experts in that, and you just go industry by industry, whatever you're into. So for me, it would be heavily real estate based at the beginning, but then it would go into, leverage buyouts, like different businesses, things like that. Because businesses are assets the same way that real estate is assets. They sell at a multiplier of, EBITDA or cash flow. You can add value and flip them later. You can do all kinds of things to them to make money.
In a way, does that does that give you that creative satisfaction where now you can buy something, but then expand on it and then sell it at a greater fee, right? Is that something that also, are you a creative person?
I come from a very creative family. One sister is was a photography major and a glass blowing minor. My other sister is a copywriter and an artist. Like, I could barely read my own freaking name when I scribble it on a contract. But yeah, the art of the deal, I guess you could say, that's my thing.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see that creative concept, because how you're speaking about that's exactly what's being illustrated from your thoughts is how you really how you envision it, and then how you want it to grow in the vision that you set for yourself, which is very unique, I find. And I think that's very enjoyable for many of the listeners and the viewers to see how you attack each of these different deals, each of these different homes, where you're looking at it from an art that you've created in your own mind. And I think that's something that's pretty unique and cool. So with this private equity, obviously I brought up Gary Vee, and that's something that you've been hammering for the past how many days?
Oh, God, it's like 600 and something days. It's been over 2 years at this point. It's like 2 years at this point, yeah.
2 years straight. Every single day.
Every day. Won't find a day missed.
Just like day number 1, day number 2.
That's
Just saying you're trying to get Gary Vee on your show.
Yep.
And what's your show?
Handsome Homebuyer Podcast.
Handsome Homebuyer Podcast. Where can they find that Handsome Homebuyer Podcast?
Every platform that you consume content on, my friend.
Handsome Homebuyer is there.
Handsome_Homebuyer, baby.
Handsome_Homebuyer. For those of you at home, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Are you a Twitter?
I'm not a good Twitter, but I'm a Twitter.
Twitter, not for me, man. It's so toxic.
Yeah.
I see. Twitter is just so toxic. I look at that. Just people, just keyboard warriors. Tons of keyboard warriors. Instagram, Facebook is like, okay, this is what we're talking about. It's friendly. It's about sharing. It's about being intertwined. I mean, at the end of the day, social media, I have a whole separate feeling on it in its entirety, but it's necessary to the way we live today.
Yep.
But Twitter is like where you want to go to get your popcorn and just start eating that popcorn, just reading, because you got people just assaulting others and just going off on diatribes.
Yep.
And to me, it's just like, oh, this is terrible. In what, 100 and how many characters is it now? 200 something characters? I lose track.
I'm not sure. TikTok is just as bad, if not worse.
I hate TikTok. I have. That's a whole separate thing. I had a guest come on who's talked to me all the legal side of TikTok, the amount that you got. For those of you at home, better watch that episode. But anyway, TikTok is terrible, and I definitely support banning it. And it's horrible, and I look forward to the United States as a whole making sure China never gets any data of Americans. But
oh, jeez, how do you really feel?
Yeah, but we'll go there another day with that. That'll be our part 2 political style. All right, political style with Handsome and LiPetri. That's what we call. We'll have like a side show.
There you go.
That's what it'll be. We'll collude our podcast together for one epic show.
I love it.
Of that. That would be sick. But why Gary Vee?
So I used to go on these long bike rides, like these 30-mile bike rides, and it's miserable to bike 30 miles. So
yeah.
I have to listen to something.
I wouldn't do that voluntarily.
It's amazing, but it's miserable when
Sounds
you're doing
miserable.
it. So I would listen to his podcast, and I started adopting a lot of just, his marketing practices and things, and it really helped transform my businesses. So I don't know. There was just a point where I get these wild ideas in my head, and I just have to do them, and that's it. And once I do them, they have to see them through.
Now you're committed.
That's it, committed. So I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm going to podcast with Gary Vee, and I'm going to start doing this thing every day. And I'm like, now it sort of took on this life of its own, where people are like, yo, when do you think you need Gary on? And now it's kind of like this underground known thing that kind of just helps my brand. The big reason why I want to do it at this point, because sometimes I think, I'm like, what would I ask him at this point? Because I've listened to him so much, I kind of feel like I know what he's going to say about everything. I mean, when that day comes, I'll come up with some stuff. But I feel like when I was growing up, I went to Wanto High School. It's a school of excellence. It's an upper middle class
A+ school
community, right? But you never see anybody doing anything great. Now, you see people that become doctors and lawyers and teachers and whatever, and that's all great. And they live very successful lives and have families and kids, and it's awesome. And I'm not saying anything bad about that. But it's not often that you see somebody that you grew up with in a traditional middle-class neighborhood reach for something great. You know, run for Senate, be the president, open a private equity fund, you know, flip hundreds of houses a year with other people's money with, you know, millions of dollars and stuff like that. Like, you don't see a lot of that, right? That's my opinion.
Okay, I'm listening.
So I want to kind of set an example for people and show people that have been following the journey that with persistence and hard work, anything is possible. You know, I was fortunate to have a mother who was amazing, and she was like, Charles, you're a prince, and you can do anything you want, and you can have anything you want. So, like, similar to him, I had this insane amount of self-esteem beaten into myself from literally childbirth. So now it's kind of like an example that everybody that's watching, like, yo, he did it. If he can do it, I can do it. And I watched him do it. Like, I see the roadmap of how to get there.
So, in essence, he's not only an inspiration for you, but you're using now this journey as an inspiration for others.
Exactly.
That persistence and determination alone is omnipotent. That was a quote from, I believe it was Calvin Coolidge, who said that, a former president of the United States. And he focuses just on that exact ideas, those values, those abilities, those attributes. That's what really inspires man to accomplish greatness. And I think for you, that's evident that you're not only talking it, but you put it into action. Because something like that, many people would be scared. They'd be scared that you're out there looking like an idiot, just saying, Gary V, please come on, day 6 something.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you got to put yourself out there. If that's what you want, you can't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Yeah, it's like it's hard to imagine greatness if you haven't had it around you. You know, like when you grow up in these like ultra affluent towns and you're going to Yale and Harvard and you know your roommate's buddy is the CEO of Pepsi, you see all this, it's like it makes sense to you. But if you're growing up in a normal community, you know, you typically conform to what you know and what you've lived. And it's kind of hard to break out of that and reach for something that everybody else behind you is saying, you can't do that. Like when I was like, I'm going to flip houses, like, you can't do that, kid. You're nuts. Like you're going to lose it all. You're never going to be able to flip a house. Like that was the beginning of flipping houses. And then I did the first one and I was like, what do you think? You got lucky. Let's see you do it again. And a lot of the people there were certain older people that were in real estate that told me I could never do it that now have millions of dollars invested in me and have completely, you know, transformed that. But at the beginning, it was, you can't do it.
Handsome home buyer. I think you are somebody that has always been able to do it. I think somebody that you will continue to do it. And I think for many of the listeners, the viewers, they love the fact that you have done it.
Thank
and
you, sir.
I'm excited for where you're going to go, next steps. This has been an absolutely wonderful conversation.
I appreciate you very
I
much.
really appreciate people hearing your story, learning about your story, where you came from, and how this wasn't something that was age 18. You were like, I'm doing this. This wasn't something at age 22. I'm doing this. It was you really finding yourself and having that vision and going after it, man.
There you go.
And that's laudable. And I think that for those listening at home and watching, they need to know that at any point in your life you can do it as long as you set your sights onto it. You have that vision. Surround yourself with people that can help you and give you advice. And I think now for you, can people reach out to you? Can they talk to you? Maybe there are people who are interested. How do they get in touch with you?
Very accessible. All the social media platforms, handsome_homebuyer, IG. My phone number's out online. My email's out online. I'm always happy to help people.
Give that number one last time.
516-777-SOLD.
If they're going to sell it, you're going to buy it?
That's right. If you have a house that smells like cat pee, dated from the 1960s, 6 inches of mold on the wall, human waste floating past the basement steps. I'm quick. I'm easy. I'm a good time. I want to buy it.
Ladies and gentlemen, handsome home buyer. Thank you.